you're Philly, you got to play without fouling. And with 4 seconds, ton of time for Toronto to get a good look here. You got to be aware of the inbounder here if you're Philly.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
Wow, that gave me
goosebumps right there.
And the reason it gave me goosebumps is because if you know me, you know that, like many men my age, I like sports, right? Football, basketball, golf, rugby, chase tag, bowls, bowling, curling, tennis, badminton, not soccer. Baseball, softball, cricket, croquet, and lacrosse. You get the point. But all that is to say that for someone who likes sports like me, when improbable and almost impossible moments like this happen, it imprints itself on your brain, and you'll most likely remember those moments forever. Everything from the call by the announcer to the story that led up to them. But the reason that these plays really stick with you isn't because of how awesome of a play it is, even though it is an awesome play. It's more about the moment in time in your life in which it happened. As a kid who grew up playing pretty much every single sport that I could, when there was high-stakes sports on TV, I was watching, in the hopes that I would be there to witness the lead-up to an insane moment like this, live. And that's why I showed you this clip, because if you've seen any of my previous videos, subscribe. But more importantly, if you've seen any of my previous videos and have a keen ear, you would recognize that I use the sound of this moment a lot in my videos. Now, why do I use that clip? Well, because it's a clip from my childhood that can be funny while still being appropriate for the situation, and hopefully adds a layer of character to my video by it being something specific and important to me. But no, I'm asking, why do I use it? I use it because that clip, unlike many others, is the perfect embodiment and personification, if you will, of human jubilation. But why is that? What are the elements of this clip that make it such a great example of jubilation? Well, if you don't know anything about basketball, the playoffs are played in a 7-game series, meaning that the first team to win 4 games out of a possible 7 games wins the series. And as you can see here, this is Game 7. Both teams have won 3 games. It's win or go home. The victor getting to continue their dream of an NBA championship while the loser gets sent home. Possibly a minor setback on the way to greater things, or maybe even the final blow to send a team into despair for years to come. So this shot was for the season. But more importantly than that, look at who was in the stands. So one more thing you should know about playoff series in the NBA is that it's structured so that the team with the better regular season record gets home court advantage, meaning they get one more game in their home stadium than the other team. And importantly, it's structured so that that game that they get at home is the Game 7. This all culminates with a massive crowd of people simultaneously experiencing a moment of pure jubilation. The release of hours worth of buildup of excitement for victory and fear of losing. And I employ that sound in my videos because this moment, or any other moment in a sports setting similar to it, exemplify that better than anything else. Or almost anything else.
We have caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden.
3-pointers for Michael Jordan. An absolute spectacular defense.
brings me to the true point of this video. You see, this is not a video about sports. Okay, well, it is a video about sports, but it's more so a video about human psychology and why sports elicit these emotions within us when we watch them. The year is 1945. World War II has just concluded as the deadliest war in human history. People line the streets celebrating with their loved ones the fact that one of the worst eras in human history has finally come to an end. No other word to describe what they're feeling besides jubilation. And everyone knows the story from there. War is over, everyone's home, this leads to the baby boom that skyrockets the US population, yada yada. But with everyone back home and in their right place, there was now a newfound need for entertainment that had been understandably pushed to the wayside during the war. Cinema, theater, and music are all things that may come to mind when we think of entertainment, but these things were present even throughout the war, often used as a means to cope with the rapidly changing environment we were in. With the intense rush of emotions that came with the conclusion of World War II and the United States being on the winning side of it, people needed a more real and adrenaline-pumping form of entertainment. So in stepped sports. Obviously, the MLB had been around long before the war had started, but almost as if it was waiting for the war to come to its conclusion, the NBA was founded only a year after it ended. And a few years later, as the result of the increased popularity of American football, the AFL and the NFL merged to form the National Football League. Gone was the old championship system, as a new one was ushered in, a playoff comprised of two sides of a bracket, the AFC and the NFC. The winners of each respective side set to face off in a matchup to be titled the Super Bowl, otherwise known as the most profitable sporting event in American history. Sports was a booming industry. The New York Yankees, otherwise known as not only the most popular baseball team in America but also the world, went from operating at a loss of $98,000 before the war, which equates to $2.4 million in today's money, to posting league-high revenue after the war concluded, bringing home $201,000 in profit alone, which, if you didn't know, equates to $3.1 million today. And as the years have gone on, sports have only gotten more popular, with teams taking home boatloads of money from ticket sales, team merchandise, and everything in between.
Dude, you just took my wife's breath away.
And as the popularity of sports increased, the amount of war around the world decreased. Since the year 1800, 3/4 of wartime death were caused by the first two world wars. The age of meaningless deaths of the innocents was over.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Think relative, okay? You gotta think relative with me. But the question still remains, why did sports receive such a big surge after the war was over? Sure, you can say there was a demand for it now that people were back home from the war, but sports had existed before. The NFL had been around since the 20s, and the MLB had been around even longer than that. Hell, professional basketball had even existed since 1898, so it's not enough to say that people were back home to enjoy it, because they were never enjoying it to this level in the first place. I mean, remember that footage I showed you of the World War II parade? I've seen crazier parades for Philadelphia winning the Super Bowl. Hell, the Knicks won a single playoff game this year and they had the streets of New York looking like Gotham City. We give athletes the keys to the city. We rush the field just to celebrate with them. This lady is at every single Chargers game. You're telling me she wouldn't be locked in on the front line? We spend our free time watching highlights of the game we just watched. And I love it. It's the shit. Hell, there's even data to suggest that birth rates spike in cities after their teams win championships. Does that sound familiar? Now, in no way am I saying that sports and war are the same, but what I am saying is that maybe as an evolutionary mechanism, we slotted sports into the place in our brains that war and battle used to take. It's the same way our feet have shrunk now that we wear shoes all the time. There was an environment created, so we adapted to it. But it's not enough to steer completely clear of war. Oh, no, no, no. We got a taste of that sweet, sweet dopamine release that came as a result of being on the winning end of a war, and we had to have it again. But without what it cost to get there. You see, when our brain experiences these moments, we receive intense dopamine rushes as a result, a chemical released with the sole purpose of telling our brains, hey, good job. And as a result, our brain has a natural want to recreate those releases. So, when they do happen, our brain takes note of two things. What triggered this release, and what are some cues within the environment we can use to help create it again. So let's look. What triggered this sensation? Victory for us and our loved ones over our opposition. What can we do to recreate it? We put ourselves in a position of conflict in which we battle to be named the victor, usually fighting for a greater cause than just the notion of winning a fight. But there's only one thing our human brains value more than pleasure seeking. Not dying. It's not worth it to achieve this level of pleasure if it comes at the cost of our lives. But what if it, or at least a feeling similar to it, didn't have to? And with the natural expansion of each league serving to decrease the odds of our favorite team winning the proverbial war, the similarity between these feelings only furthered. We started hating on teams that weren't ours because they didn't play in the right way or had unlikable figures on their team. Here's the Splash Bros, and now here's the Axis Powers. Okay, I'm being a little facetious, but you see where I'm coming from. I'd argue this is even where gladiatorial combat came from, but we watered it down over time because that shit's gross, bro. No one wants to see that. And we were able to successfully find the pleasure and joy of triumph without any of the hardship. Kawhi Leonard, game-winning shots, insane catches in clutch moments, ferocious dunks, grand slams to win the game, perfect curling placements, the most intense tennis rally you've ever seen. Blocked by James, Patriots win the Super Bowl! My favorite player, Russell Westbrook, on my favorite team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, finally winning the MVP, and Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard hasn't won a championship. Dame, what are you doing here, Dame? Dame, what are you doing here? No, Dame. Dame, you're not gonna... Dame, that's a bad shot. Dame. Dame, don't take that shot. Dame, don't take that shot!
The shot just playing back and forth in my head.
That'll be it for me. You know, I've had a long run. It's been great. I mean, I just fought my last fight for a heavyweight championship, and it was a pretty good...
Can't believe it's over.
They gave up on me.
I can tell you're having a tough time out there, buddy, so I'll just go ahead and take it. It couldn't be that easy, could it? Now, of course, these moments aren't as bad as actual, like, wartime, terrible, awful stuff, but I'm saying we're trying to get as close to that feeling of winning the war without having to deal with any of the negative side effects, as in death. And I'd argue that this is about as close to that kind of hardship as you can get without you or one of your loved ones' lives being in immediate danger. You see, in order for these moments of triumph to have that level of excitement, they also need to be preceded by moments of hardship and despair. Because contrary to popular belief, dopamine isn't just this evil thing we get from scrolling through TikTok and Instagram Reels all day long. It's actually a key ingredient in keeping us motivated by encouraging us to pursue and achieve a goal, giving us smaller releases of dopamine in anticipation of the award associated with said goal. Meaning that our brain likes hard work, as long as there is a goal that we are actively intrigued by at the end of that hard work. Our brain has to like it, or we would have never got anywhere as a species. And of course there's more to it than that, but the point is secretly, we like the struggle. And that highest of highs in terms of success can only be achieved through overcoming adversity. Not only because self-reflection on failure is necessary in order to change the problem and improve yourself, but because it literally increases the amount of pleasure we get from succeeding. Now you may be saying to yourself, yeah, no duh, Josh, of course success feels better after failing. Everybody knows that. But what if I told you that it's deeper than that? And that not only does failing make success feel better, but the act of failing itself actually feels good to us.
Josh, please shut the hell up.
Oh, dude, no, it's serious. In recent research, we have actually found that when there is an expected goal that we do not obtain, i.e. failing to obtain that goal, we are not actually met with a drop in dopamine levels, we are met with an increase in them, coming from a different place in the brain, but all the same, still releasing dopamine. This is why when we fail, or at least when humans have failed throughout history, we don't just stop and never try again, or at least we shouldn't. But sadly for you and me, it's not as simple as our brain pumping out dopamine to keep us moving forward and trying hard things again, but it's actually dependent on us to take advantage of it. You see, people who respond to failure by initially taking a prolonged period of time to beat themselves up or ruminate on their mistakes actually end up diminishing the amount of dopamine that is released upon failure, whereas those who quickly pick themselves back up and don't allow failure to hold them down are rewarded with a greater release upon said failure. So essentially, it's on us to take advantage of our biology. It isn't easy to stare failure in the face and act like you don't care. It's hard as hell, but if it was easy, everyone would be Michael Jordan. And if everyone's Michael Jordan, no one is. That's why it's special. That's why, whether we admit it or not, in the back of our heads every single day, we're looking down the road at who we could be, trying to get there, and we're filled with anxiety about whether we're taking the right steps or if we're simply distracting ourselves from it. And I'm not trying to claim that I'm perfect. I did the same thing too. It's tough. And the world is scary as hell. And it's even scarier to do things that might result in failure. But the fact of the matter is that in order to succeed, you have to fail. Or at least you have to accept the fact that you might fail. You may nail whatever you want to do first try, who knows, but you have to be able to accept the fact that you might not. And more importantly, you have to be prepared to pick yourself back up and try again after that failure. Okay, here we go. I speak about this because it's something that's burdened me for a really long time. I used to be so afraid to try things because of the embarrassment that it might result in. It would just have me in a chokehold. My anxiety would be through the roof. I was an intense people pleaser because I didn't have a ton of friends at the time, so if I failed to get people to like me, that just means I failed to connect with them. And it wasn't until I finally accepted and pushed back on that fear that I finally started to get the things that I thought I was trying to get all along. I have a girlfriend that I love. I changed my major to something that I love. I finally started recording these videos and taking it a little more seriously instead of just sitting on it and doing nothing with it. Finally started recording skits with my friends that we've been wanting to do for a long time and will release soon. And once again, I'm not perfect, right? But I say all this to say that if a guy like me who's just barely managed to kind of make it out of that struggle has seen this much stuff go better for him, then someone who's in the middle of it can do the exact same thing. It just takes a leap of faith. And that brings me back to the grander point of this video. We've already talked about how sports have kind of taken the slot in our minds of what war used to be. But what about the first part of that title? The art of war. The art of sports, and why I and so many others have come to love it so much. For the longest time, I used to just watch sports and think, man, I really like this because of all the cool stuff in it. But it wasn't until I kind of talked with my dad a little bit that he helped me put together why I liked sports so much. Sports itself is the embodiment of what we've been talking about. Failing and failing and failing and failing and getting back up every single time. Learning from your failures to become better at what you do. Leaning on the people around you when you feel like you can't recover from those failures. Overcoming the adversity not presented by your environment, but presented by yourself. Your self-doubt, your disbelief. You become more confident, not only through your successes, but through the failures that you previously thought were insurmountable. And that ultimately, art is the imitation of life. And that the art of sports resides in its imitation of the very best parts of life.